Okay, so we're back in Photoshop for the first part of this. We're going to make some tiling textures first of all. We're going to look at how we can do that very, very easily. So I'm just going to reiterate the two different tiling textures we're going to be looking at. One is a unidirectional, well, that we can look at, not that we are going to look at. One is a unidirectional tiling texture, which just means it tiles in one direction. Now, it doesn't matter if it's going left to right, right to left, up or down, or anything like that. It just tiles in that direction. You know, if you think about wisteria leaves, if we're keeping it organic, it's quite hard to think of examples of unidirectional tiling textures in nature outside of like very small things. If you do really, really hyper realistic plants with like stems and stuff. But generally, most things in nature, if they're going to tile omnidirectionally. But you're going to see a lot of unidirectional tiling textures in like buildings, man-made objects, pipes, things like that. Omnidirectional tiling textures where it tiles in both directions, up and down, left, right, and that's one we're going to use, and that's what the one that we're going to kind of look at. And this is also why Photoshop is much better for this, because you can't actually do this in Procreate or anything like that. So it's much better in Photoshop. Okay, so I'm going to make a simple bark texture on this, but what I'm going to do is basically make it in the middle portion here. I'm going to leave a gap on the outside, so then I can fill that in later on. So I'm not going to do anything too crazy. I'm just going to start to, get some kind of basic wood texture in here, and this is something with a little bit more kind of detailed. Some of your other woods, obviously, you will have to look at and think about what your own wood type is doing. Some people have got very detailed woods, some people have got very simple woods. You've got to look at and analyze and observe your own wood types. Okay, so I've just done that. So that's me basically sketching out the wood at the beginning. I'm getting my wood grain in there. But like I said, I've not done anything on left and right, and I've not done anything at top and bottom. Now what I'm going to do is go to... notice I've done this on a layer as well. So I'm going to sketch. I've not just done this on the background. I've made a layer for this. So I'm going to go up to Filter. I'm going to come down to Other, and I'm going to come to Offset. Because what I can do here is start to shift this in pixels. So horizontally I can move this in some pixels. You can see there it starts to wrap around because I've got wrap around selected. So you can clearly see where the middle is there. And then same thing for vertical. If I move this, I can do the same thing there. So this is a 1024 texture. So I'm going to shift this 512 across the horizontal first. So 512. Okay. And then I can just fill in this area. So this is where the seam would be on that texture. Now, my seam's already pretty much fixed on either side because obviously it wraps around. And in fact, I'll just emphasize that more by shifting this an odd number so that this little curl I've got here on the left hand side, you can see the back end of that curl coming off on the right hand side there. So this is where my gap is. So let me just fill that in. Cool, there we go, that's done. So now this is going to tile unidirectionally in left to right, but obviously I've not done my up and down yet. So let me come to here again. There's a 0, and then I'm going to do my vertical. So I'm going to set this to 512. So you can see that's tiling perfectly, and all I need to do is fill in the gaps. Now as a sketch, it's still going to look, you're still going to be able to see the pattern of where the middle of this is going to be as a sketch, because obviously we've not doctored it enough, we've not done a paint over or anything like this. Let's just do some stuff. There you go. Now I'm going to save that out as a JPEG. I'm going to save that to the images folder. I'm going to call this bark test. This is me testing the bark. And in my scene, I'm going to make a plane, single plane like that. And again, I'm going to apply a new material to this. So existing material, Lambert. I'm going to call this bark. And then just apply that color. Or apply that black and white, that sketch. So boop, 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 foliage, images, back text. There you go. Awesome. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure this tiles correctly enough. So let me just D and V the pivot point to the bottom right corner like that. And then when I duplicate, I can snap it over to the right again. Duplicate, snap it over to the right. Duplicate, snap it over to the right. Drag it down a bit further, and then duplicate. So I'm doing like a 4x4 grid, like that. And all I'm using this for is just to check if I can see any very obvious tiling issues. That means like sharp lines where the tiling doesn't actually pass over. Obviously, because we're looking at this flat surface and it's multiplied 4x4, we're going to see repeating elements. But I'm not going to see. Hopefully, I'm not going to see any like bad tiling, literally where a line just ends. It's like a pixel sharp line. I'm not seeing any of that. So you can see that's quite good, which is nice. So with that, it's time to now take this and start to make our bark. Now, bark is not very high contrast, especially because we're doing something that's more towards realism. You don't want to make something too eye-catching. You don't want to make something too high contrast. So I'm going to keep it really basic, and I'm going to just do a few little tricky things to do stuff. So with this sketch, what I'm going to do is, at first I'm going to blur it using a Gaussian blur, not that much, like that. Now this will not tile anymore. I'll show you. Well, in my brain it's set. I'm not saying it's not going to tile. There we go. So here, because I've blurred it, now we're getting little artifacts of, especially well, essentially on that edge. I'm not seeing any on the vertical, but definitely on the horizontal, we're getting this little issue here. So I've just got to be aware of that. But all I've done there is just blurred it out, and I'm just going to put a general kind of barky colour on there. Actually, you know what, I'm going to put the sketch above it, multiply it. Oops, a daisy. There you go. And then when I'm just going to find that issue I was just seeing then. So vertical, we're fine. Right, but that's where the issue is there. Okay, so you can see clearly what's going on here. So, just going to use a very, very soft, very, very low opacity brush, as well as a very, very soft, very, very low opacity eraser. I'm basically work in conjunction with these two just to get rid of some of that information. Now, because I've shifted this over to the right hand side a little bit to expose this, again, these two edges are now repeating, so I've not got any seams here. I've just exposed the seam here. So when I fix it in this area, we're all good. But then I'll just have to do it vertically to check that with me fixing it, I've not then kind of like made more issues. Even lower opacity, so I'm going very low opacity. There we go. So you can see I'm just looking at those sharp lines going down the middle. I'm just going to fix those up. I can also use our good old friend, not sponge, there we go, blur. So if I set that to 1%, I can just start to blur some of these elements out a little bit to help me along. Again, I want to take away any of that sharp edges that might appear, because obviously sharp edges don't exist in nature. And I can just take that edge further down. There we go. See, I'm fixing it now. Oh, there we go. So it's just smooth that out. Could even use smudge just to shift out a little bit. So whatever tools you have at your disposal in Photoshop, whatever your favorite stuff is, all we got to do is make sure we're not doing anything too stylistic. You know, look at the reference you're using. What is the quality of that wood? You know, there is a kind of unidirectional tiling when you come to like, I think it's ash and birch. There's that white, like white ashy tree with the like horizontal striations where the bark is peeling. You know, that's kind of omnidirectional or unidirectional. Yeah, so you can see there, I'm just upsetting some of the wood, especially with this soft, upsetting some of the softer textures here, just to get some of that shape a bit sharper. And I'm just using the smudge with a nice large brush, 50% strength. I mean, I could up that a little bit further, I think, maybe, possibly. All I'm doing is just keeping it subtle, but just getting some of that shape back in. So let's go through and do that. Okay. So I've done that a bit. I'm going to, again, use the offset just to reshift this to see if I can then expose any dodgy edges. So if I do it horizontally, I'm seeing kind of something there in the middle. If I do it vertically, can't see too much, but I can see a few things just. Okay. Okay, that's looking good for me. So once again, I'm just going to export that. I'm going to overwrite my bark test. Yeah, I want to replace it. And then jump back into Maya. And just like with the plants, if I just grab a piece there and then go to the bark material, click sample, it's then going to look and update. Now, can I see any horribleness? Can I see any obvious tiling elements? I don't think I can. Oh, not obvious tiling elements. Glitches in the tile, because obviously I can see tiling elements. I can see the same thing kind of repeating. Okay. Cool. I mean, I'm not too far away from the bark kind of being done here. All I've got to really do is, because it's this black and white texture which is pulling the actual, you know, change in texture. I can just change this color again, quite like our method of texturing inside Substance. I'm doing things in different layers and keeping them nice and non-destructive. That feels a bit better. One thing I'm going to do is do I try and do it as a separate layer? I'm going to add noise to this sketch layer. Keep it monochromatic, Gaussian, bring it down a little bit. No, maybe not noise, but if I render some clouds, all I'm trying to do here is just add a little bit of extra natural kind of form, because obviously here we've got two tones, we've got with this darker tone, this lighter tone. I don't necessarily put on like super high highlights in it, because that's going to make it look very artificial. But what I'm trying to do is just add a little bit more naturalness to it. So just a black and white, I think. Now clouds will automatically repeat anyway. These should automatically repeat. So now that just breaks up the... It adds some haze, some clouds to that colour, so it... There we go. This makes it look a little bit more natural. I'm quite happy with that so far. Okay, I'm going to leave it like that for now. Cool. So that's me just testing that. I know we're all good, so I'm going to move you over here. Or maybe I'll move you down there. Okay, so that's us making our tiling texture. Very, very simple. For something like this, it just needs to be that simple. Obviously, these kind of things can get very, very complex. The more complex you need your thing to be, especially when it becomes something man-made. But for this, oops, it's quite simple. Now, it's time to make some trees and stuff. So I've got my reference for my tree on this side here. So let me just bring it in. There we go. So I'm going to be doing something like this. Nice, simple. Obviously, a 4 meter by 4 meter environment. You're not going to have too much stuff, too much space to do big trees, that kind of stuff. But I like this as a tree. It's quite simple. You've got a basic, fairly straight tree stump, maybe a couple of these. Obviously, I'm working off one image here, but you would obviously have lots of different images. This is a basic apple tree kind of thing. So you'll have a basic stump, and then it might split off into a couple of different other kind of stumps, and then into smaller branches. Pardon me. So let's actually do a thing. So I'm going to leave that. I'm going to just leave it down here for a sec, so we can all see it. There we go. Right. So tree stump. It's a cylinder. I make a cylinder. I'm not going to leave this as 20-sided. Again, people are still leaving stuff as 20-sided, and it's crazy that you're doing that. Bring this down. I'm going to make this an 8-sided cylinder. Okay, so see, I can use this grid. If I think this is 4 meter by 4 meter, and I'll look at this reference, how big is this in 4 meter? So I can use this to get a gauge about how big I want stuff to be. So I'm going to say there. Like that. I'm going to take away the bottom faces because I don't need them, because they're going to be in the ground. For this, I'm actually going to take away the top faces as well, and just give myself a very, very simple thing to work off. Now with this, what I'm going to do is also turn off double-sided lighting. I don't like that. There we go. What I'm going to do with this is just what I call making the journey. I'm going to look at my reference, and I'm going to go from the very bottom of the main trunk to the very top of the main trunk as a straight line, then add divisions in it to get the shape that I want. So this is going from obviously here, and then it looks like it goes out and then comes back up. So then I'm going to pull this up to where I want this to end. Maybe there, because obviously it's going to be a big canopy. So about there. Maybe, you know, just add a bit of dynamicism to it. There we go, just like that. Bit of a lean. Cool, and then I'm going to add an edge in the middle. The single edge, and then I'm going to pull it off to one side. What's this? What's this? Oh, I've got preserve UVs turned on. So let me just turn that off. There we go. So go away. That's better. Let's rotate that in the direction it will be facing. That. That. We just bevel this one in the middle. Fraction, there we go. There we go. So I'm just doing some stuff just to make my model look a little bit less organic. Oh, not less organic, less man-made, less straight. And then I can change some of it. Now that I'm adding more edges, I can see what I need to do to this to just give it a bit of extra like organicness. So I'm doing a little bit of twisting, a little bit of bending. I'm not doing stuff too crazy. I'm just keeping it subtle, but something like that. I'm happy with, and then I might just do a bit of soft selecting to something. Oh, it doesn't look like it goes in that thin though. I'll leave it like that for now. Cool. So that's my main stump, my main trunk. What I'm going to do is do the same thing, so I'm going to add another 8-sided cylinder. So take the top and bottom off again. Same rough kind of scale, maybe a bit smaller. Because this I'm going to add like a branch that comes off this as it kind of grows. So this is going to start from there. Maybe actually I'm going to bring it down a little bit further. Maybe there, yeah. I'm going to rotate it in. Now, as I said in class, I like using, when I'm doing stuff like this, I'm not bothered about using the cardinal directions, the red, green, blue. I'm just going to use the grey area because it's a little bit unpredictable and it rotates nicely. There you go. So this is going to kind of rotate in like that. Grow from it, I should say, not rotate. It's going to come out like that. Gets thin, a little bit thinner, and I'm thinking I'm going to drop this. So it's going to come out a bit straighter, then it's going to come up, and then it's going to come out again. So let me add 3 divisions this time, just because I have a better idea about what I'm doing with this one. So it's going to come out like that, and then it's going to come up like that. And then I can just shape stuff like that. Again, I'm trying to get away from that overly artificial, obviously geometric kind of bending to stuff. Something I want to avoid as well is also making it too organic, so making it too bendy. So let's hide that inside there. There you go, something like that. And if I want to, I can just update this one to kind of, because I got like some larger kind of areas that kind of goes thinner, then thicker and thinner. I can kind of replicate some of that a little bit. So maybe this gets thicker, and then it gets thinner, and then it gets thicker again. Yeah, something like that. So notice as well, I've not UV'd any of these. So now what I'm going to do is make an array of little branches. Or in fact, what I'm going to do, before I do that, I'm looking at this, I'm seeing another kind of stump behind this. I'm going to duplicate this guy off, shrink him down a little bit, put my pivot point at the bottom, tilt him over a bit, and then just go to town with the old soft select. So this is coming up, and then it looks like, if we're looking from this direction, like it looks like it's coming out, and then it comes across. Looks like it's coming out from the same area though, like that. It's coming out, then it's coming across, and this top bit maybe coming across like this. Okay. And this is going to be all canopy up here. So yeah, I can go through and keep making branches like that, and then make smaller branches that are going to be the same thing, but I'm going to keep it less divisions than that. I'm going to keep it maybe 4 or 3. So let's make a 3 division little branch. Again, I don't need the top and bottom. Like that. And I can make a bunch of these in like a row. So okay, and we're back. So I've just done some little basic modeling of branches. You can see these are really simple, just three-sided shapes. Made them out of a cylinder first of all, brought that number down to 3, and then just made a few variations, then a couple of bigger versions, a nice little branchy version, and then just added them to the tree and tried to make something, you know, interesting. I selected everything and just gave everything a mesh display soft edge, so get rid of all those sharp, obviously very artificial lines like that. Now what I've not done is with this whole process is UV anything. Really, if I'm being like careful, or not careful, but if I'm just good housekeeping, I'd UV all these off to one side. But I want to show you how simple it is to actually UV this stuff. So I've got my tree here. I'm just going to combine it all together. Pivot point at the bottom. There you go. So I'm going to move you away for the time being. Right, let's look at my UVs. So obviously my UVs at the minute are going to be useless. Absolutely useless. Can't use them. But all I'm going to do here is just planar project the whole thing in either X or Y. Oh, sorry, X or Z. So it doesn't really matter. Like that. Just because I wanted to lay it out. And then the easy thing to do with this is, especially for the tubes which are basically just hollow cylinders with no top and bottom, because the branches I made just then are all they're all meeting at the end. But for all the big tubes and stuff, all I'm going to do is just select an edge going down the length of it. So let me move this out of the way. There you go. So I'm just going to select an edge run down the entire length. And if I turn shaded off, there you go. So you can see that edge running all the way down the length. It doesn't really matter what edge as well. Cut that edge, grab the thing, and then unfold 3D. And there you go. That's it. That's done. And I can go through and basically do that for everything. Unfold 3D, move to the side. Grab you, cut, unfold 3D, move to the side. Cut, unfold 3D, move to the side. So you can see, dead simple. And even for these the shorter branches which have turned into triangles at the top, same jazz, just cut, select it in UV, unfold, cut, select in UV, unfold, cut, cut, select in UV, unfold, and the last one, cut, select in UV, unfold. There we go. So there are my UVs. I'm just going to orientate them all the same kind of general direction. Now obviously you will spend a lot longer on actually making the tree than what I've done. This is purely for demonstration purposes. Make sure you take your time with your tree. But the thing I have to do now though is just make sure that the actual textures are looking okay. So here's my bark texture. Or the current bark texture, because I might change it later on. I might, you know, look at my reference and think, right, what have I got here, and then what have I got here? Can I just change my my texture to match this? Which I can do. Okay, but all I'm going to do now is just make sure I grab this whole object, right-click, assign existing material, and assign bark. There we go. So now everything is going to carry that bark texture, which currently isn't looking very good because we're looking. Our UVs are very small compared to my actual texture. I'm thinking this texture, this kind of bit here, is like a foot by a foot. So obviously that means that these are really, really small. So I'm just going to scale these up, and I'm just going to eyeball them, turn off shaded UVs. I'm just going to start to scale these up until I'm, you know, happy with the overall effect. Ooh, that's quite nice. Just like that. Now obviously you're going to have seams appear, but because we kept it very low contrast and all that kind of jazz, the seams are not very noticeable. But boom, there you go. That's the tree done. And then as I update the texture, this is automatically going to update anyway. Now what I can do is scale a piece up a bit more. Be like, okay, that's actually what I want it to be. So this is now bigger than everything else, just textile density wise. So I can grab my hero piece and be like, right, that's orientated the right way. All the UVs are correct. So I'm just gonna come UV toolkit. I'm gonna transform I'm going to get that textile density, and then I'm going to assign that to everything else. So now everything is the exact same size. And all I do is basically go around and move, rotate, maybe scale a tiny bit, but move and rotate stuff so they, seem to match up as much as they can. And then if I want to change the texture at all, I can do that very easy, like I said. Super, super nice. Okay, so we're going to leave the world of trees. I'm just going to do a quick save and move this over to here for a sec. And I'm going to grab this. Grab these, I should say. Move that over, so I've got the tree over here. Like that. I'm just going to move your skelly down a little bit. So I'll just organize my scene a little bit here. Right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make some terrain. So another thing we can do is obviously think about the terrain we're going to make. Depending on what you're doing, depending on how complex your terrain is going to be. Now, if I'm just going to do something like a vineyard or an apple orchard or something like that, it's going to be fairly flat land or maybe a bit craggy. If I'm going to do something that's in like a forest, maybe I've got some nice elevation, something like that. Generally, whatever. I've got a nice, fun little thing I can do with deformers to help me get something in there. And I can either do it in here or I can do it in Photoshop, not Maya. All I'm going to do is I'm going to make, in this case, I'm going to make because this doesn't really matter too much at this stage because I'm not actually going to use this texture, but I'm going to just do a 2048 by 2048, so nice and big, like that. And I'm going to make a cloud texture, so filter, render clouds. I can even do clouds different. Oh no, I'll do clouds first, and then oops. So I got my clouds there, got my noise, and then I'm going to come in here and do a cloud difference, which just changes this to be like this. So it changes the shape, it changes the effect a little bit. But this is what I'm going to use because I want to really make a point of what this does. So I'm just going to save this out. This is a black and white height map essentially. So white value is going to be high, black value is going to be low. I can change the contrast of this so the blacks and the whites aren't too far away from each other, or if I want to I can up it. I can go in there, I can brighten certain areas, so I can do like a soft light with a nice big brush. I can just kind of like, just brighten some areas up. Then darken some areas down. So I can do something like that. Again, I'm just looking at height and stuff. So I'm going to save this out, export it out as a JPEG again. Export that. I'm going to put this into this. I'm just going to call this terrain. So like I said, I'm not actually going to need this as a final texture or anything to apply into Substance or in Sketchfab. Because what I'm going to do here is just make sure that my terrain here, my little plane, is, get rid of all this, change this back to general, is suitably dense enough. So I'm going to up this. Actually, it's a bit bogged. Let me just do, because I changed the shape of that a little bit. There we go. So it fits the grid. Make it 50 by 50. I could go 100 by 100 if I want to and make it even more kind of granular. Like that. This is just meaning that the geometry is going to be denser, but because geometry is quite light, it shouldn't really matter too much. I'm just going to delete the history of the whole scene for a sec to clean stuff up. Right, here's the fun bit. In the deform menu here, a few down from nonlinear where our bend, deformer, spine, all that kind of stuff is, I'm going to get texture. So I'm going to click texture. Annoyingly, the menu doesn't pop up straight away. If you go to attributes editor, you're going to get texture deformer. If you click on your object, then right click on this arrow on the far right here, you're going to look for texture deform, and then you've got texture here, and it's also got a few settings to mess around with, but I'm just going to put texture. I'm going to find that file I've just made, so navigate to my foliage, images, terrain, boom. And then it deforms the surface. So it uses the height values to the black and white values to control the height of the geometry. So basically, just grabbing a vertex and saying what pixel is assigned to that vertex, and it just moves it up and down depending on the value. Now here as well, we've got a strength control. So what I can do is actually increase and decrease the strength of that, because sometimes the strength isn't strong enough. So maybe you might want to, I don't know, pump it up to like 100, like OTT it, like that. So obviously that's too intense, but that's giving me more headroom to play with, so I can really start to control that. Maybe go past 2, and depending on what your scene is. That's quite cool. Essentially, this is how we also do terrain in Engine. So I'm going to put this down to like 1.5, I reckon. Yeah, maybe less than that. Let's just play with some of this stuff. So offset's going to move it up and down. What does handle do? Some of these just kind of... Ooh, okay, that shifts it in a kind of direction. This is it normal, so that kind of shifts it up and down. Normal and handle basically the same thing. World, okay, so that's very noisy. Local, pretty much the same. UV, okay, cool. So fun stuff I can do. And that's just adding a little bit of definition to the surface that you can play with. And again, depending on what you're doing, you can get some cool results. So what I'm going to do is quickly pause the video and grab a really cool map. Okay, so I've got another piece of terrain here that's incredibly dense. This is divided 10 times, just to show off what you can do. So if we're zooming around in, you can see these are really, really small faces. And I've downloaded a height map off the internet. So if I go to deform again, texture again, find my deform, texture. Let's just do a quick save before I do this. Texture. I'm going to navigate to the foliage. Now this isn't foliage, but it's a cool like height map. I'm going to call it terrain 2. Boom, there you go. Now if we turn off that, there we go. So now we got actual terrain. It's just incredibly dense, and as you can zoom into it, it looks kind of crap. But if you zoom out, it's really cool. And this is how we do terrains in game engines that are pre-planned and stuff. And again, we have got the strength and stuff to play with, although because it's so dense, it's hard to see what's going on. There we go. That's better. So yeah, deform and a height map, something like that, it'll help you kind of get something, because then from there you can grab bits. Use your soft select and just grab a whole section, make a pointer, make it big, pull it up, this bit, make it a bit smaller, pull it down, pull it up a little bit, pull this up a little bit. You can start to get a little bit of levolution going on in your scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this, I'm going to pull it in. I'm going to say this is growing out the bottom of a stump of like that. Because you've also got your sculpting tools. So if you find that some of this you want to be a bit smoother geometrically, you can do that, or maybe you want to kind of do other stuff to it. So if I get the relax tool there, make it a bit bigger, I can just smooth stuff out if I want to. Maybe that's just a little bit too dense there, but then I could also go to this, like bubble, and then I can just add, I can inflate a few bits there. I could pull or pinch some, I should say, some bits. So have fun. Push. So this is like intensifying the details of that area. Really, really simple. Cool. So that's another thing you can do. Really, really fun. Really, really fun. So what we've done here, we've done a little bit of tree bark, we've done creating some cool terrain, we've done repeating textures, so we've covered quite a lot in this video. So I'm going to end this one there at 39 minutes, 40 minutes, and then we're going to do a little bit more in the third and last video.